Ethos, episode 8. Do we want our reality managed? Welcome back, my informed fan. Today's journey, we're taking through the labyrinth of modern day information warfare and societal upheavals, where narratives are carefully crafted and truths are obscured by layers of deception, lies, truths. We've been hoodwinked and bamboozled. Bamboozled was a good movie, man. Shout out to Spike. It's more important that we are ever sharpen our critical thinking skills to question the status quo. We have to keep our thinking caps on, you heard? Because the blob is in full effect, is in full steam. We gonna peel back the layers of the veil of propaganda, dissecting the tangled web of politics, economics, and media manipulation. From the corridors of power to the streets of your everyday life, we'll explore the hidden forces that manage our reality and the consequences they entail. Through the voice of the decent and the cracks in their facade, we'll uncover uncomfortable truths and confront uncomfortable realities of our time. But beyond mere observation, we'll also seek resolution, rallying together to forge a path towards a more equitable and informed society. So buckle up as we embark through the depths of deception and emerged, enlightened, empowered, and ready to challenge the narrative. Welcome to the Ethos, where the truth is our focus. Check out this clip.
We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false.
Objective is, which is political control. And so you can imagine fishing fleets causing more problems, lots of pressure, pressuring countries around the world to step away from defending Taiwan. And I have seen how this goes. The war games, they all end up badly. They end up badly for, if you think our stock markets are volatile today, the moment you start to see Chinese military start to move to their eastern shores, you will see volatility that is of a scale we haven't seen maybe since 2008. Every time the assets that sit on the island of Taiwan, everybody knows them, are impacted nearly immediately. The Japanese are forced to get involved very quickly, and the global economy suffers in a couple of weeks, not a couple of months.
Mike Pompeo said that if China were to position for a hot war, the stock market would sell off like 2008. Not in a matter of months, but in weeks. Pompeo.
Stock market sells off like in '08.
Closing numbers on the markets today. At one point, the market fell as if down a well, over 700 points.
Apple shares are just getting hammered this morning.
We're down by between 3 and 4.5% generally across these markets. Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate. We're red everywhere, essentially, down by 4-5%.
We're down over 16%. Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
We will have one of those blow at the top moments. What we learned last week, one of those black swan events where rich people or people in the know make the most money because of all the volatility in the markets. And they can make the same kind of accurate predictions based on what's going on in the market. So to give you an example, this is not financial advice, but during the pandemic, what stocks you think went up? Those M1 or those 191 masks, whatever those masks was, the mask companies made money hand over fist. What you think about the big boys at Pfizer? Figured that one out. They was all making their money because what? This was their time to shine. Now, this pandemic is a medical crisis. Remember, everything in America is for sale. I ain't gonna lie, my boy. I don't know if you got it better or if the words of this thing got translated this way purposely, but we just want you to see a little bit of what Putin is saying or what they said Putin said. You heard?
Of currency, the universally accepted currency. How have sanctions, do you think, changed the dollar's place?
Yeah, why is Tucker not getting the same energy as everybody else
in the world?
Вы знаете, это грубейшая, одна из грубейших.
I think this is...
See what I'm talking about with the propaganda? Putin, the head of Russia, don't got a translator on the screen like the other countries where you see the little person on the screen and they doing a sign language and all that. You gotta watch everything that's on TV. If it makes it to you, to your Black Mirror, you gotta question it. If you don't question it, you accept this information free and clear. And what information do you accept free and clear without checking what it is, without thinking about it, without weighing it against your own measures? That's why the TV is so deceptive. That's why this Black Mirror is what it is. But because we just take all the information. You know how they say when music hits you, you feel no pain. Knowledge is the same.
одна из
I think this is one of the gravest strategic mistakes committed by the U.S. leadership, using the U.S. dollar as an instrument for foreign political confrontation, because dollar was the cornerstone of American prosperity and power, and everyone understands many dollars you've printed, they go around the world. Inflation is at a minimum, I don't know, 3% or so, 4%, which is an acceptable level for the US. And you can print as many US dollars as you like. Because the public debt of the US is testimony to that. But be that as it may, dollar is still the cornerstone of American power across the world. But once the US leadership decided to use the US dollar as an instrument for foreign policy confrontation, once they did that, they dealt a blow to the American power. I would be loath to, use better words that are improper, but
here's a part that's not being emphasized enough. The world will be at war. More than 3 or 4 countries will be fighting wars going on at the same time with competing and opposing interests. That will be the worst case scenario for everybody, and we don't want to have that. But yet it seems like America keeps pushing for it, and not everybody is open to a world war.
It is a very grave mistake. Look, even the American allies decrease their dollar reserves. They are starting to search for ways to shield themselves. Because if the US applies restrictive measures to certain countries, such as freezing assets or restrictions on transactions, then it is a very grave signal to the whole world. What did happen in Russia? Until 2022, around 80% of Russian foreign trade transactions were carried out in US dollars.
Russia was doing the United States a favor by using the US dollar. This is more demand for a currency. The more demand that you have for a currency, the stronger the currency is. So when we're told that the U.S. sanctions against Russia were a success that crippled Russia's economy, that's just simply untrue.
This is not financial advice, but peep what's going on. He said that as soon as the U.S. weaponized, the dollar lost a lot of faith around the world, a lot of trust around the world. Because yeah, we have a war, but it's not even a hot war, and we already taken the dollar away. Imagine if we actually started fighting, how this thing would be. It's gonna crash. I want you to ask yourself, why would the US knowingly hurt itself unless it's trying to? Remember those black swan events we was talking about? This thing could be planned explosion on itself on purpose because they know the system is coming to an end. So they're gonna try to help it along by the same moves that they always use. A virus, swine flu, Ebola, SARS, mad cow disease, y'all remember those? Viruses in war, they only got 2 moves. Once you can see the moves, you can see that we're always in perpetual war and we're always sick. Only thing this time, they actually got away with it. But they ain't get away with it.
And Russia is now using different means to trade their different commodities with different countries and different currencies. So we've essentially taken demand away from the dollar and pushed it elsewhere.
You see that my man D Moore is trying to explain to y'all that we only getting one side of the story. So how could the sanctions be a success when Russia is doing us a favor by using the dollar? When other countries use our dollar, it's better for us. Our economy is better for our standard of living. But yet American aids Ukraine going to war against Russia, and it's affecting our lifestyle at home. It's affecting our cost of living. This inflation is running rampant, how it is right now, not because the prices went up. It's because that over there, they're helping Ukraine sanctions Russia, and the money that the Russians was using over there, they can't use no more due to the sanctions. That's how it directly affects you. You need to understand that's why this war needs to stop, other than the obvious being death. But the price it costs to continue living a certain lifestyle, like just being able to buy groceries and pay rent without the groceries being as much as the rent. A quick Google search reveals the cost of living went up 25% since 2020. There's the start. That's how it's affecting you. It's affecting you right now, right here at home.
And US dollar accounted for about 50% of our transactions with third countries. Whereas currently this figure has been brought down to 13% or so. But we were not the ones to prohibit the use of US dollars. This was not our goal. It was the US decision to restrict our transactions in dollars, which is absurd, especially from the point of view of the interests of the US taxpayers, because this decision has dealt a blow to the American economy, undermining the American...
Right, you heard, it was a blow to the US. So why did we still do it? The sanctions, to cut our nose, to spite our face? The face being the American people's way of life, because it don't make sense. If you were supposed to be helping democracy abroad, but it's making it worse at home, to then create a war that makes our lives more difficult and give the benefits to new immigrants. How are you helping the American people? What? That don't make no sense. Meanwhile, that's why we had Steve Forbes shouting out Melee publicly, because Argentina is supposed to be using greenbacks. You heard? So you got to understand the political theater and the political landscape of the global economy and how it affects us directly, how the war machine directly impacts us. In the meantime, we got to wait until they get their money up and we suffer buying $50 milk.
All of these very simple things we don't adjudicate. Look, Bureau of Labor Statistics claims that the consumer price index is based on a cost of living measure. I claim that's not true. In order for that to be true, you have to take in consumer preference data, and you claim that you don't work with consumer preference data. I'm either right or I'm wrong. It's hugely consequential in terms of billions. I claim that the Bureau of Labor Statistics is completely lying, that it's working on a cost of living framework, and that the academic responsible for it, a guy named Erwin Dywert, his theory of superlative index numbers is hogwash. Doesn't work. It's based on homothetic preferences. That takes an afternoon.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand why we can't challenge the status quo. Why can't we challenge the narrative if it's wrong? If it's not wrong, then challenging it doesn't make any sense. But when it's wrong, we absolutely have to challenge it. We have a duty to challenge it. We have to ask ourselves when the people that know it's wrong don't want it to be challenged. Why is that? Who's the lie serving really?
I claim that there is no labor shortage of scientists and engineers, despite claims that it's been going on since the 50s, because large market economies don't have labor shortages. That's a feature of centrally planned economies.
Yo, my guy Weinstein is sounding a lot like me, talking about centrally planned economies. It seems like the socialist agenda is creeping up more than people would like to give it credit, because this is a whole nother video, and yet two different men in two different parts of the world talking about the same thing. Peep game.
There's no possible way. That's a 4-minute discussion. We are just lying. Lying as the substrate of our society. We're lying about...
What is under the hood? What's under America's skin? What's underneath it? What's underneath it is not pretty. I'm saying most people don't want to look at it. It is the Lee Massacre, it's Emmett Till, it's Comstock Act, it's the Jim Crow era, it's the Tuskegee experiment. I could go on, but for what? That's the substrate of America. It's ignorance, it's lies. It's a bunch of things that's underneath it, and they're still there. You can't act like it's not there. That's why it's managed reality, because we're all looking at it. We all seen it, and we all act like it didn't happen. We all got the same orders. Wear the mask.
Physics, we're lying about economics, we're lying about finance, we're lying about coronavirus and biological.
Oh, wow. Somebody else think the C virus was a lie. That C19 bomb that you can't say on the net without getting shadow banned or blocked. Look how crazy it is. They got us in a Harry Potter simulation like he who will not be named. The nameless one. Goddamn, you want to talk about being in a straitjacket. We all experienced it, but we can't talk about it publicly? Why is that? Because of our so-called masters. They don't want us talking about the lie openly.
Research. We're lying about monetary aggregates.
How many different hills are you waging a war on?
There's only one. It's called managed reality.
Multi-method, multi-construct analysis is something that will manifest itself in multiple different places, even with independent methodologies. Here's an example. The blob, for example, manifesting itself in Eric Weinstein's metaphorical hill, aka the matrix, aka the system, with his constructive criticism of it.
This is all managed reality.
What's that?
There's a cop, maybe a special forces guy with an automatic weapon, and says, "Nothing to see here, folks. Move along." You're like, "Nothing to see." There's like a severed hand on the pavement, and you've got a tanker, and it says, danger, flammable hazard. And is it about to blow? And tell me what's going on. Like, nothing to see here, folks. Well, the nothing to see here, folks, is managed reality. We all know what that is.
Why is it managed reality? I mean, he's going to explain it, but let me give you an example. Imagine if the government came out and told you that the sky is purple now, and you look up and the sky is still blue, but they keep saying the sky is purple now. And not just purple, it's like a pale pink. It's a lavender, if you will. But when you look up again, you still see the reality of a blue sky. But you start to believe in the lie, and you start to go along with it, and you start to act like the reality that you see isn't real, because that's what you're told, because you was told otherwise. Managed reality. Cognitive dissonance is another term that describes this phenomenon, or something like it. I said the last three places your mind, they can't stop what you think yet, means you still got a choice. You still got some time.
Policeman is actually saying, act as if there is nothing to see here and move along. It's an instruction to pretend. So we are being given instructions right now to pretend on everything. Pretend that you don't understand the CPI, Eric. Oh, okay. Pretend that you don't understand immigration and labor markets, Eric. Okay. Pretend that you don't understand physics. Pretend that you don't understand plagiarism. Pretend that you don't understand biology and gender. Well, it's one hill. It's enforced pretending by a class of people that thinks that it is in a position to tell us all how to think at this level. Now, I don't disagree that policeman has a right to say, "Move along, folks, nothing to see." There's a very clear reason why that person is saying that. But when you start to say that to your experts, to the hazmat team who's telling you, don't put out an electrical fire with water, when you are telling nothing to see to the mother who sees her child on the pavement, when you're constantly telling everybody who has a stake in something, and particularly everybody who has expertise in something, you're a charlatan, you're a grifter, you're a fake, you're a fraud, it's like, shut up. Just shut up. There's one hill.
Are you the only person on that hill, though? Because, as you've said here, there's a bunch of different, the CPI, the stuff to do with physics, the stuff to do with the space travel.
I appreciate what you're saying.
Funneling on you.
There are lots of people on the hill.
No, he's not the only one in the hill. He just might be a little higher on it because he got a little status. But how could he be the only one on the hill when he's on the backs of so many others who's been talking about it, about this continued lie, that's been exposing it? The issue is it wasn't so loud because it wasn't affecting you. You was at the top of the food chain, so to speak, my Caucasian brethren. The hill didn't really come into view until the experts were told to shut up during the pandemic. Put your mask on, and they took theirs off, and y'all got to finally see the real face of the American control system. So now, being on the other side of the so-called truth, where experts that was normally supported are now being silenced from saying the truth. Because we had to become the experts. We had to do our own research. We had to know what we were talking about. We had to have this thing committed to memory so others can see that we're dead ass about it. Y'all remember dead ass is a New York idiom, means serious. Longer, because a bunch of us men and women started standing up for what's right and honest and not just their subjective opinions.
These fields to know it's in that field too.
Throughout history, we have seen the same story over and over.
What we have to start doing is stepping back and looking at the proverbial hill, actually looking at the whole hill, not just the individual fights that we're fighting. We have to understand that the individual fights that we're fighting are part of the same fight. To take a more gestalt approach so we can individually have the freedom to think for ourselves, to make our own informed choices, the freedom to mess up and for it to actually be our fault, not the fault of the machine, not because the system was working perfectly. Nah.
But I'm confused. I mean, that's the biggest act of industrial terrorism ever. And it's the largest emission of CO2 in history. Okay, so if you had evidence, and presumably given your security services, your intel services, you would, that NATO, the US, CIA, the West did this, why wouldn't you present it and win a propaganda victory?
В войне пропаганды очень сложно победить.
Well, it's very difficult, to achieve a propaganda victory because the US controls all the global media. As far as many European media are concerned, the end beneficiary in many cases are American funds, foundations. So, getting mired in that, well, this is one avenue to pursue, but, it can turn out to be very expensive. And moreover, we might reveal our own sources of information without securing the end result. The whole world understands what happened.
This man is the leader of Russia, the whole Russia. He said the US owns the global media. No way he could win this propaganda fight, or he would have to compromise his own sources. Y'all remember the old propaganda cartoons where you'll see the octopus in the old drawings in the newspaper or some magazine? Gotta do some research on who the artist was, because pictures are worth 1,000 words. That's why they used to have the SSR with the octopus, because it has so many reaching arms. And it's saying the reason why he can't win a propaganda war with the US is because the US owns the media. And he's not ashamed to say it, because the US is the biggest. The blob is the biggest propaganda pushers in the world. So much so that Putin can't beat them. That he laughed, he chuckled, even though I don't know if it was a chuckle because of this voiceover, but he chuckled. Yeah, starting this next clip, we gotta hear how America is going to eradicate the gig economy. And the gig economy is what's been keeping a lot of people above water. Let's get into this next clip.
What's up, guys? John here. In 12 days, side hustles will become illegal in America.
Side hustle could soon be classified as a second job,
thanks to new labor rules unveiled by the Biden administration this week.
The move has riled some companies who rely heavily on gig workers, whose costs could increase by as much as 30%.
On January 9th, the Biden administration issued a rule.
So let's see if y'all can see the play America is setting up. We got on one hand, they gonna take away jobs. And on the other hand, we're gonna weaponize the dollar in another part of the world. We're going to apply stricter laws on how people can make money, all while taking away our standing of living because we're at war abroad. This is all the things that the government are doing to directly affect people. But because the story is so fragmented, can't ever get a straight line that it deserves. On every front, we see that the government is out to get the ordinary citizen and take advantage of the ordinary citizen, all while telling you you can't have a shitty job. You can't even have a shitty job now without getting taxed up the wazoo.
That could curb gig work, and this would go into effect on March 11th. Well, the very next day, January 10th, the U.S. Department of Labor published a final rule replacing the current test for determining whether a worker is an employee or an independent contractor under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So now this is law. Presently, 50% of Americans have a side hustle, even if they earn $100,000 a year. And 80 million people have a side hustle in America, 80 million. And now what companies are doing, both small and large, is they're auditing themselves to position themselves for when they get audited from the IRS. Because now what's happening is the IRS is looking for misclassification lawsuits. They're looking to audit these companies to see if they have gig workers, see if they're underpaying certain employees, seeing if they have workers that should be classified differently. And if they do, they're going to be hit with penalties, interest, fines. It's absolutely crazy. If you look at what's actually happened inside the IRS, they've hired 30,000 agents, spending $80 billion. $80 billion.
It's crazy that they got an extra $80 billion to hire 33,000 new workers just so they could catch other poor people. How many workers did they say were working at Uber? 80,000? 80,000 in the audit and survey. So they hired 30,000 new people to catch the 80,000 and spent $80 billion doing it. You don't think that money could have went somewhere else? How about creating opportunities for the same people that you're exploiting by hiring these 33,000 new people to track them down just to see if they're being misclassified? And this is the stuff that people are going through. This is the slight by the government. And it'll continue to impede on people until they can't squeeze people no more. And when they squeeze the people more, it might as well be outright slavery. No more of this indirect slavery. No more of this debt slavery. Nah. Get in your pod and shut up. That's where we going.
This could be a really big domino to fall for the U.S. economy when you look at where consumers really stand with household debt, auto loan debt, credit card debt. I mean, the debt is out of control. And when you take away one's ability to earn an income from a side hustle, odds are you're going to start seeing more and more defaults and delinquency.
More and more people are going into delinquency. That means more and more people will need help. And guess who's going to be there? Your favorite drunk uncle. You know, your good old Uncle Sam. You know, Sam always comes and helps you. He always comes and helps you. But there's a price. Just your life and your freedom, you know? Your uncle, and he keeps you safe, protects you, keeps you away from evil. Yeah, right. Content creators. Every week I'm going to have some choice words for y'all because the more I make episodes, the more I see it's an actual, it's a chance. The more I come here, the more I touch the people, the more I take that stinking bus ride over here. I shouldn't be on the bus, but I'm on the bus. I see it that we have an actual chance. We have an actual chance for our message to cut through and to be heard because there's so many lies that it's now ridiculous and it startled people. It shook people up out of their slumber. It's helped them understand that there's something going on that they're not saying. There's something missing. And you, content creators, making the content that you're making, keeping people away from the mainstream media, keeping people dazed and confused and sheep herded, you keeping a people away from that is actually helping. So whether you're talking about bull crap, flowers, rocket science, doesn't matter. The more you keep people away from the mainstream media, the more we have a chance. Millennials, my peers and comrades and friends, let's start being more open to hearing opposing opinions and things that we don't like because we need both sides. We're not always gonna like the things that we hear. We're not always gonna like the people saying them, but we have to show some tolerance and some respect because that's how we get the full picture. And we need the full picture to survive because the powers that be, they survive and they clicked up. You heard? Powers that be, they clicked up over the globe. You know what I'm saying? Russian rich people, American rich people, they got little clubs. You know what I'm saying? We don't got no clubs. We got to talk to each other like this and we don't want to listen. We got to start having more ridiculous conversations like Candace Owens and Joe Budden's. Like, we got to start that so we could talk. We need the dialogue. We need to share information. It's the information age. We're not sharing information. We're not talking to each other. There's no reason why we're not all talking to each other in a more understandable and cooperative way, not just liking each other's pictures and foolishness. Like, let's have some real dialogues. You heard? Check back next week for more knowledge. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, pass it around. Let us know in the comments below. Let us know what you think about what's going on in these internet streets. Stay tuned for more insights, more critical thinking, more facts and questions. Remember, the last free space is your mind. They can't control what you think. Check back next week for another episode of Knowledge.